Card King, here I come. Hello, sports fans, sports collectors, and all hobbyists. Welcome to the Card King Sports and Variety Show. I am your host, the Catman, Brian Cataquet, a.k.a. the Card King. We are live on ABC's KMET 1490 AM.com, your number one spot right here for news and talk on the West Coast. I thank everyone for tuning in this morning. On the telephone line, I welcome to the program one of the most popular early Dodger pitchers in their cherished history. He's a World Series champion and really a Brooklyn icon. We welcome to the program the great Carl Erskine. Carl, Brian C., honor to have you.
Hey, buddy, thank you so much. Proud to be here.
Oh, Carl, me being from Brooklyn, it's really an honor to speak to you. I mean, there's a street named after you. It's just it's an amazing feat. I mean, you sound terrific.
I feel terrific. I got a few years on me, a few miles, but other than that, I'm doing fine. My wife Betty and I have been married over 75 years, and we're still together, and we're still enjoying life.
Amazing. So Carl, I know it's quite a long time ago. You began your baseball in baseball from 1946 and 1947 with the Danville Dodgers, and then divided your years 48, 49, and 50 seasons between the minor leagues and the Brooklyn Dodgers. How did the Dodgers first hear about you?
Well, they had scouts around, and there was a man named Stanley Fiesel who was an official in sports. And that's how I first met Stan Fiesel. And he was also a kind of a part-time scout for the Dodgers. So that's how that connection worked out.
And, you know, after your terrific pitching performances, because you had several terrific pitching performances at Danville. I mean, you had a record of 19-9 mark in Danville in 1947, then a record of 15 wins and 7 losses at Fort Worth in 1948, and then I guess that you showed the Dodgers how good you were, and they were impressed.
Well, they had a big farm system, so there was a lot of competition, and you really had to fight your way to the top, and fortunately, I had some good arm and had some good string of success, and so that got their attention quickly.
Now, do you recall the very first time you stepped on the mound in Ebbets Field?
Yeah, I do, sure do.
And how was the experience like?
Well, I looked around at Ebbets Field. They held about 35,000, as I remember. And the thought I had was, this is as many people here today in the ballpark as live in my hometown of Anderson, Indiana. So there's it held about 35,000, I think. It was not one of the bigger ballparks. But it was a lively place to be.
And then, did you enjoy the surroundings, the environment of Brooklyn at that time?
Well, yeah, I sure did. The Brooklyn fans, they took you to heart right away. You one of them, and they had. It's like any love affair, I guess. They have a right to hate you or love you both at the same time. And Brooklyn was pretty loud, and they did not play favorites. If you played bad, you got a few boos.
Yeah, and we have to. I want to touch upon the 1953 season, because it was a season in which 1953 in which you dominated the league alone. I mean, you had a winning percentage that year of .769, beating out Hall of Famers at the time, Robin Roberts and Warren Spahn and others. What did you do differently in 1953?
Well, things just kind of come together for me. I'd had a little arm trouble along the way. 53 was one of my years that I had the least problem with my throw. I was a right-handed pitcher. I threw the ball straight over the top, and that put a little extra. A lot of trainers and even a couple of doctors told me I should throw more sidearm. My ability was not to throw sidearm; it was to throw overhand. And I said, you might as well tell me to throw left-handed as to throw sidearm because I throw over the top. That's my natural throw. But it did put a little strain on my shoulder. But I fought through that. And if you go back, and most pitchers never want to admit they had a sore arm. And so it was kind of a thing you didn't tell everybody. Even the trainer sometimes didn't know you were bothered by a sore shoulder. But I fought through all that, and it worked out well.
And, you had, at that time, you had one of the best change-ups in the game. Who taught you the change-up?
Well, the Dodgers taught that technique, and most pitchers, the way they taught that in the Dodger organization, most pitchers could not really do it effectively. But I was able to raise my fingers and then cut behind the ball, give it a lot of rotation, and not much speed. So Johnny Padres also was able to develop that pitch. But most pitchers in the Dodger organization could not use the technique that the Dodgers taught for the throwing on the off-speed pitch. But I picked it up quick, and it was really a very valuable tool for me.
Oh, no doubt about it, especially in 1953 where, you won 20 games. And, the World Series, you really showed the world how to pitch in the 1953 World Series, striking out 14 Yankee batters, including Mickey Mantle. I believe you struck him out about 4 times.
Yeah, it was 4 times. You're right about that. Well, he was a free swinger, and I like to pitch to free swingers because off-speed pitches is the worst pitch it's the best pitch to throw them. It's the worst pitch for them to hit. And so I got off pitching against him because I did change speeds a lot. And with the same motion, same rotation, but different, you could adjust the speed. And that was a very valuable way to pitch a good free swinging batter. The home run hitters are free swingers. And so that pitch was effective against a real hard, real free swinger. So it was one of my best pitches.
We're talking with the legendary Brooklyn Dodger pitcher, Carl Erskine, who's on the telephone line with us today. Carl, I was looking at your baseball cards, and I read one of the things you mentioned. The year 1952. The 5th game of the World Series, you noted that was the most exciting game that you witnessed, and I don't know how well you remember this game, beating the Yankees in 11 innings, 6-5, the most exciting game in your career. Do you still believe that?
I think I could put it up to the top of the list because you'd give up 5 runs, you're usually not going to win, but that game was very unusual, and what was more unusual was that Drysdale, our manager, I thought was going to take me out. I was having kind of a tough inning, but instead of taking me out, he surprisingly left me in the ball game. And to reward him for the faith he had in me, from that point on, I think I retired 19 or so in a row to win the ball game. So I was fortunate that Drysdale saw something in me that made him leave me in some games that I thought, like most pitchers, would have been replaced. But he let me fight through those. And fortunately, I rewarded him by pitching very well after I'd had a kind of a tough inning. and then I got a lot of hitters out in a row. I don't remember 19 in a row or something. So I was fortunate that he had confidence in me, and he'd leave me in even after I'd have kind of a rough inning.
Yeah, amazing. And, you know, I would think your biggest personal thrill in your career must have been, striking out 14 Yankees and getting your 14th strikeout against Johnny Mize.
You know, that was kind of a payback. Mize had been rough on me. I'd made three bad pitches on him, and you could not make bad pitches. I didn't face Ted Williams very often, only in spring training, but he was as good a hitter as I ever faced, Johnny Mize. He had a very, very restricted strike zone. You couldn't make him chase a bad ball. He was very selective, and he had power to any part of the ballpark, even the upper deck. So he got some pretty good home runs off of me over time. But I finally learned how to pitch to him better than I had in the beginning. You couldn't throw him a good strike. You had to keep him off speeds and just pitch him very carefully, because he was a very dangerous hitter, and he hit the all fields. Musial was probably the toughest hitter in the league, but I had a lot of respect too for Mize.
I was going to ask you, who was the toughest hitter you faced? Would you say Musial?
Consistently, Musial was the best hitter in the league. The thing he did, he always made contact. He didn't always hit it hard, but you seldom struck him out. I think in my whole career I struck him out 4 times. And that was, I forget how many times at bat, but a lot of times at bat. And so he was a tough strikeout.
I mean, how would you pitch to a batter like the great Stan the Man? I mean, you would throw change-ups or high and tight?
There was no out pitch for him. He hit the ball to all fields. He didn't always hit it hard. Most of the time he hit line drives too, but he didn't always hit with power. But he always made contact. That's the toughest guy to pitch to. He didn't always hit a line drive base hit, but he got his share of bloops, and he always made contact with the ball. It was tough to get 3 strikes on him.
How about, did you ever pitch against Willie Mays, Hank Aaron?
Both of them. I sure did. Yeah, well, you know, they were both right-handed hitters, and they got their share of hits off of me, but, you know, I got good advice from an old-time pitcher named Hugh Casey. He said, look, these guys are going to hit 320, 330, 340. They're going to hit anybody, you included. So the best medicine for pitching to these good hitters is to keep the guys off the base in front of them. So when they come to bat, there's nobody on. So you got to bear down on these weaker hitters and don't put them on in front of these good hitters. Boy, that was great advice for a young pitcher. So that was kind of my style. You get the good hitters are going to get their hits. So you got to keep these weaker hitters off a base in front of them. That was great advice for a young pitcher like me.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, what a feat. I mean, just striking out Mickey Mantle 4 times. I mean, come on. That's remarkable. A few questions on your fellow teammates. How is Sandy Koufax?
Sandy was a quiet young man, and he didn't ask a lot of questions. He's pretty quiet, and we all knew that he had exceptional stuff. He just didn't have a real good command of it. And Rube Walker was a backup catcher for us, and he warmed Sandy up a lot. he told him one day, he said, look, you throw the ball hard, and you throw it as hard as you can every time. But if you back off about 80% instead of throwing 100%, when you throw about 80%, your ball moves more. So at that point is where Koufax became a dominant pitcher. He quit trying to overpower all the hitters, and he threw about an 80% effort instead of 100%, and the ball moved more, and he got more strikeouts. So backing off a little bit of throwing hard actually helped his fastball move more. That was great advice he got, and it made him a dominant pitcher.
And how about Jackie Robinson?
Jackie was the spirit of the ball club, really. His base running, aggressive play, he's exciting. He was an exciting player to watch. And when he got on base, everybody in the world knew he's going to go. Sooner or later, Jackie's going to go. And he did. He ran the bases fearlessly, and it made him a very exciting player. And, that puts a lot of pressure on the defense when you got a base runner like Jackie was, that he's going to go, and he's going to go hard. And he's going to take the extra base, and he'll score runs when other players don't take the chances or aren't. What Jackie was good at was fast start. He could be 2 strides into his full stride, and that made him a very dangerous base runner.
And Carl, Pee Wee Reese, was he the leader of that ball club?
Pee Wee was a great captain. He wasn't a holler guy. He didn't. I never heard Pee Wee use any bad language even, but he was a solid captain on the infield, and he was very appropriate to be our captain. So he was a solid player, a real professional. I always thought of him as the real professional. That's the way he played the game. It was attitude, and he wasn't necessarily a 325 hitter, but there's a stat that isn't in the book, and it's the guys who get the hits. When do they get the hits? That's more important than getting the hits itself, because some players get in the bullpen of the other team. They get on some weak pitchers, but he was just a dominant with the bat, and so I considered him the real professional on our team.
And what about Campy, Roy Campanella? I mean, what a great catcher.
Campy was super. I pitched most of my career, 12 seasons or so. I think 10 of them I pitched to Roy. Yeah, he was a wonderful battery mate. He had lots of savvy. I don't know what that word means really, except that he had a feel for his technique of calling pitches, when to call them, when not to call them. He had kind of an extra sensitivity about the sequence of the pitches he called, and he made all of the pitching staff better pitchers, especially the younger. In fact, the manager used to tell the young pitchers, if you shake your head and shake off Campanella, you better tell me a good reason why you did it, because you just, he puts down a sign, you better stick with that and throw it. So, but Campy was, he was an all-star, so he won the best around.
And just 2 more. How about Duke Snider?
Yeah, Duke was my roommate, and Duke he was an outstanding player. He was a better defensive player than he ever got credit for. But Evans Field had a smaller confinements. He didn't have as much room as the Polo Grounds or Yankee Stadium to chase down fly balls. But yeah, he was. If you'd ever see him play in one of the bigger ballparks, he made fantastic catches all over the place because he had a lot of room, and he was confined at Evans Field. So we played Yankee Stadium. He made some great, especially when I was pitching. He was my roommate. I think he seemed to always play better when I was pitching.
And what about Don Drysdale? I know he came up in the late 50s. How is Don Drysdale?
Yeah, I always said Drysdale, compared to Koufax or other young pitchers, he seemed to be more mature. He coming right up out of the minors. He took command of the game like a veteran pitcher might. So he didn't have any rookie season, you might say, because he seemed to take command. As soon as he walked on the mound, you knew who was out there. And that was his strength. He came right in as a young pitcher, and he proved quickly that he was in charge, and that made him very effective.
And Carl, I mean, you were right there, the 1955 World Series. I mean, you're a champion. How is that moment like, just to be there in your career?
Well, you know, it happens over and over again in sports that some team gets up against a barrier of some kind. It's like some brick wall you can't go through, and that was happening to us. But we finally did that. We finally broke through it and began to get that feeling finally go away that we couldn't get through this brick wall. But we finally did.
You definitely did. Now, when moving to L.A., what a change. Did you like L.A. when you first got there?
Yeah, it was, pitching in the Coliseum, you might say would have been a strange experience. But the Coliseum was a lot like the Polo Grounds, which we had played in, over the years. A very short distance down each line, and a lot of wide open outfield, and that's the way the Coliseum was. A lot like the Polo Grounds. So some of that adjustment wasn't as tough as it might have been.
And, I have a couple of minutes left. You pitched 2 no-hitters in your career. You made it to the 1954 All-Star team. Another tremendous feat in your career. The 1954 All-Star game, big thrill for you, right?
Oh, yeah. That's always... all players all hope they get that experience, and it is a big thrill to be in the All-Star game. Some players make it over and over, and a few of us make it a few times.
And Carl, I saw a picture of you playing the harmonica. Do you play the harmonica?
Oh, it's one of my hobbies, yes. Yeah, it started as a kid when my dad had a harmonica around the house, and I picked it up, and I could play a tune on it. If I could whistle a tune, I could probably play it. So I didn't read music, but if I heard a tune, listened long enough, I could probably, if I could whistle it, I could probably play it.
and your nickname Oisk, how did that come about?
Well, that's a Brooklynese. That's a treatment of my good Christian name, Erskine. In Brooklyn was Oiskin. And so that kind of followed me all the time. But it was a term of endearment, really. Fans yelling from the stand, "I'm with you, Carl. I'm with you, Oisk." So that's that nickname kind of followed me around.
Yeah, I want to congratulate you, Carl, because from what I understand, the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum announced that you'll be awarded the Buck O'Neil Lifetime Achievement Award.
Yes, that's right. And I don't travel much anymore. I'm on a walker, but my son is there to accept that for me. That's a very amazing accolade that came to me by complete surprise. But very thrilled to have that award.
Man, so listen, I really appreciate a few minutes of your time. This was really a treat for me. So, I can't thank you enough for coming on.
No, it's my pleasure. Thank you for asking me.
Certainly. And my last question, Carl, do you still get a lot of fan mail for autographs?
I do, yes. In fact, if you answer your mail, you get more mail. So I do answer all my mail. And so I get sometimes 8-10 letters a day for autographs, and I sign them all, make sure I get them sent back. So yeah, that's a fun thing for me, and my wife likes to help me open the letters and read what the fans have to say. Some of them are kids, 10 years old, and some of them are older. Senior citizens, but yeah, I enjoy my fan mail.
I mean,
and I do answer it.
Yeah, and you're definitely a fan favorite, no doubt about it. Thanks so much, Carl Erskine, for being on.
You're my pleasure, and thanks for asking.
My pleasure. We'll speak soon. The legendary Brooklyn Dodger great Carl Erskine. Until next week, happy collecting to all.